Hello and welcome to the Hey Boomer Show. My name is Wendy Green and I am your host for Hey Boomer. I'm really excited about today's show and there's just so many reasons why. But let me start with this. Teenage girls are struggling today. The CDC's chief medical officer said the other day that teen girls are engulfed in a growing wave of sadness, violence, and trauma. And that was from a report that they released that showed that 57% of teenage girls felt persistently sad or hopeless in 2021. That's the highest rate in a decade, and almost twice what was reported by teenage boys. Additional findings of this report: about 30% of teen girls had seriously considered suicide, up from 19% 10 years ago. And 18% also reported that they had experienced sexual violence. These numbers are very disturbing. I know that people in my generation, in every generation, we grow up with, our teenage problems, our views of the world. And what teens are experiencing today may have some overlap, but there's also a lot of differences. And my goal with today's episode is to talk to these two young women that will be my guest and learn more about their experiences as teen girls, what they're doing to address some of the problems, and what we can do as members of the boomer generation and beyond to support them in the work that they're trying to do and in their development as our future leaders. My guests today I met at an AAUW, American Association of University Women conference. And I was so impressed with them that I had to bring them on the show to meet you all and to share some of their wisdom with us. As I said before we came live, they're going to be the teachers today, and we are the students. Their names are Eleanor McGuirt and Avery Simon, and they're juniors at Maldin High School. Last year, they started a club called the Young Women's Forum, and it is for all who identify as female. The group aims to create a community of support and activism for girls at Maldin High School. Their first initiative at the school was to provide free menstrual products in the bathroom because period products are a necessity for every single girl, and every girl should have easy access to them, regardless of their financial situation. In this episode, we will talk to Avery and Eleanor about what other needs they see for the members of the Young Women's Forum, what resistance they ran up against when they started it, and their vision for what this group can do in the future. They're going to help us increase our understanding of some of the issues that young women are dealing with today. But before I bring them on, I want to thank our sponsor, Rhodes Scholar. Rhodes Scholar is the not-for-profit leader in educational travel for boomers and beyond. They have trips to all 50 states and over 100 countries. It is by far my favorite way to travel. I have been on several trips. I have 2 coming up this summer. They are an amazing organization. I hope that you will check them out, and please use this link, road, ROAD, scholar.org/heyboomer. That shows that we are promoting them and my listeners are supporting our sponsor. So roadscholar.org/heyboomer. The other thing is I wanted to invite you to download the vitality assessment that is on the Hey Boomer main page. So if you're considering retirement, the vitality assessment will help you determine whether it is time for a major life transition or maybe just time for a few little tweaks to bring you back up to full fulfillment. If you've already retired, you'll get a better understanding of where you are in life now and what you need to do to have that meaningful, fulfilling life so your cup is full rather than empty. So download the Vitality Assessment from heyboomer.biz. All right, so I'm going to bring Avery and Eleanor on. And fortunately, it's President's Day, so they can join us. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
So grateful that you guys decided to join us today and share your story and your insights.
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited.
So first of all, have you guys been friends a long time?
Well,
2 years.
about 2 years. We met I knew her since freshman year, but we only had like one class together, so we didn't know each other that well freshman year. But we mostly became pretty close
That was
friends.
also the year of COVID, so
Yeah,
there was plexiglass and masks, so it was really hard to get to know people.
That's
Okay.
true.
Around sophomore year, restrictions started easing up a bit, so we were able to have more like direct communication with our peers. So I got to know Ellie a bit more, and since then we've been pretty close. So
And so how did the idea for the Young Women's Forum come up?
I can remember there was a FaceTime call, and because we just go on FaceTime calls and we do our work while just being on calls together, and we were just talking. And she and I have something in common where we're both pretty politically aware of what's going on. So we have talks about that, and we have talks about how hard it is for teenage girls. And we were just like, wouldn't it be so cool if there was a club that was just for women to uplift each other and
yeah.
voila.
But we have previously established at our school, there's a group called GSA, which stands for Gender
and Sexuality Alliance. So we knew that it's because that was kind of the starting point. We were like, wow, if they can create that club, I wonder if we could do this.
For people who identify with the LGBTQA, which is an amazing club and they do a great job with that. We thought, I think it would be something cool if we could have something for women as well, since there's a lot of struggles we face and a lot of things in our current day that we have to deal with, but we don't really talk about, especially where we live. We thought that would be a great type of club to, reach out to people and have those type of discussions.
So tell me more about that, especially where you live. What did you think you were going to run up against when you brought this idea out?
Well, we knew since there was a GSA, we were like, well, if they can do that, they probably can't turn us down. Our school doesn't turn us down. They don't encourage us, but they don't, I guess, discriminate against.
They don't discriminate against us, but we're definitely not like predominantly uplifted. I mean, there are definitely other clubs that are more seen as like something we have to push out, but at least when we first started our club, there were some fundraisers we wanted to do, but many of those opportunities to do those fundraising ideas were taken up by other clubs that I guess were seen as higher necessity for having the ability to do fundraisers and stuff. So I feel like with our club, we definitely have to push a lot more to get the things done what we want to get done. Obviously, there's no one stopping us, but if we want something done, we have to push for it, and we have to contact multiple people, go through multiple people to be able to achieve something and get a plan done.
There was also one incident with the bathrooms. It was when sophomore year was kind of a jump start. We started later on, and we knew our main priority was putting feminine products in our bathrooms free for every single girl. So we kind of just like kicked it off with a few boxes. And within like the first week of putting it in for the first time, we look in the bathroom and we're like, our box is missing. And we don't know where it is. And it turns out our janitor, I guess, took it up because he said that it would be causing too much of a disturbance and that it was too much work.
Yeah.
I guess he just came up with very questionable excuses. And it just felt like, it just felt really, I don't know what's the word for it.
It just kind of felt like people didn't care. Like,
Yeah,
people don't understand because, I mean, it was a male janitor,
So he's not going to understand the importance of it.
the importance of feminine products are a basic necessity, the same as food and water and anything else. Maybe not quite to that extent, but it's the same as like clothing. You need clothing, you need shoes, you need things like that. I mean, with every single woman or someone who has a menstrual cycle has to deal with that and has to have those type of products just to be able to continue on, and that's a basic necessity, and not everyone can afford that, so that was our main goal. But I just don't think he could fully understand how important that was. Maybe in a sense it might be a little more to keep track of, but we're willing to keep track of that. We're willing to keep those put up. I just think with seeing that, he might have been a little frustrated, like, oh, something else I have to like look out for, clean up for, whatever. But I don't think he realized that it's really much more of a necessity than just a little task of something extra to clean up for.
Yeah. So how did you address that? I mean, that could have been pretty disheartening right there to see, we did all this work, now it's gone.
Well, first of all, we had to track it down because it was in the middle of class and we started like freaking out. We were like, it's gone. Like, what? So we contacted some of the administrators. We were like, someone took our box. And he was like, oh, the janitor took it out.
And to them, it just really seemed like it wasn't a priority. Like,
Yeah.
we had to go through multiple people to figure out where it was, and we had to contact our administrators and be like, we need to be allowed to do this. Like, we can't have the janitors just taking up our boxes. Like, we'll fill them up, we'll clean them up, we check up on them at least like multiple times a week. Like, it shouldn't be that much of a hassle, and if it becomes that much of a hassle, then tell us, and we can try and
Plus, like, I
fixing the
don't
problems.
think they really realized that, and maybe we didn't even realize it, because there was a concern of, okay, well, if we put these products in the bathroom, we are teenagers. Sometimes people like to, do messy things with them and maybe put pads on the walls or something like that. And that definitely was something that happened in the back of our minds, but we really have discovered, and we kind of knew this, but like, feminine products are such a necessity that no girl would ever like take that away from us. No one's gonna mess with the products because it's kind of just like an unspoken rule that's just not something you mess with.
Yeah, I just think they jump to conclusions about what, like, maybe people will try and flush them down the toilets, or maybe they will leave them places. That didn't happen. Even we've had them in place for over a year now. That hasn't happened. It's just they jump to these conclusions and they try to want to prevent these imaginary problems without thinking about the repercussions of people not having access to those. If you have a menstrual cycle, you're going to have to use those products, whether they're there for you or whether you bring them to school. So you're going to run into those problems whether they're provided to people or whether they're not. Mm-hmm. But they just immediately thought, well, this could cause problems, so we're going to try and get rid of it without thinking, hey, people might actually need this. Mm-hmm. And we were not going to tolerate that. So we contacted our administrators. We tracked our basket down. And now we have one in almost every single bathroom. And we are keeping up. And if someone tries to do that again, we will go through the same exact process to make sure they're still there.
So there you go. You tried what you thought was just going to be a very useful activity. How could that possibly be controversial? Every young woman has, I guess every young woman has a menstrual cycle, unless there's something physically that's not, that's a problem. But how does that make you feel about addressing some of the other problems that I mentioned in the beginning, like sexual violence or, fear or thoughts of suicide, those kinds of things? Do you guys even consider tackling those kinds of issues?
Yeah. One of our main objectives with the club was to provide menstrual products, but within our club meetings themselves, we do try and progress more towards like having discussions about that kind of stuff, because at least, around the world, and like more predominantly in the South of America, it's women aren't supposed to really share their struggles. We're just supposed to keep going, have a smile on our face, and keep trekking forward. But there are these constant fears that we face that we should probably be more open to talking about. And that's something we push to do with our club, is have those type of discussions. Like, no matter what you feel, it doesn't matter like whether you're this way politically or that way politically, we want everyone to feel comfortable sharing their opinion, whatever it is, just so we can all be more educated and have different perspectives on everything. But yes, those are some things we need to address, and we do try and address is things like that, because that's very prevalent to what us as young girls have to face nowadays with the new scary things that people
and that's
decide to do, and
that's kind of the reason. That's kind of one of the things that sparked us wanting to do this, just trying to create a community of support. Because even if you don't, some people I understand don't want to talk about those things, which in some cases, that's fine. But it's just like being there for each other. Like I feel like there's just this thing with social media and all these factors. It's just sometimes it can just turn girls against each other. And we even know from personal experience and just being friends, like there is a huge problem with girls and mental health. And there's a massive problem with mental health generally. But we just, as young girls, have so many problems and so many factors that just affect us on the daily that without like having friends, and I don't know what I do. So it's just like with this club, we want to make sure people meet people and feel comfortable and just to be themselves.
Yeah.
Ellie, what are some of those factors that contribute to the mental health issues that girls are facing today?
I don't even know if I could count them. I mean, social media is a huge factor. I mean, there's a huge stigma that we have to look good on social media and our life has to be perfect. And that is just a huge factor. I mean, also with like, there are just stereotypes and stigmas that we face every day. Like, I don't think any young girl could walk around saying that they have not experienced some form of like.
And I think one major problem in our society, which I've noticed amongst like many people or women who work hard, is women, when they tend to work harder or push hard for something or are driven about something, they're seen as more mean or aggressive. But if a man does the same thing, it's seen as like initiative and drive. It's just, no matter in our society what women do, if they're passionate about something, they're aggressive. If they are laid back, they're lazy. It's like women, I feel like in our society, are constantly critiqued and judged, and even women amongst each other, they judge each other, which I feel like has been kind of conformed in our society. So we just try and work to like break that down and be like, nobody's perfect. Everybody's trying their best, and we don't have to hold ourselves to these amazing standards.
Women just have to try harder, and it's like we just have to try harder to get somewhere. Men can do all these things and they can, climb up the ranks, but women, we just have to try harder, and it's not our fault. No matter how hard we work, we're still, there's always going to be stereotypes of, oh, you're not working hard, you're mean, or why are you not at home with kids and stuff like that. It's just like those are always going to follow us no matter how progressive we get. It's just like those follow us.
And I think with our club, we just mostly want a community where we can be like, hey, I'm not alone. I'm not having these feelings alone. I'm not feeling like judged alone. Like, we can all help support each other and have these shared feelings and talk about it and be like, hey, I don't have to be this way or this way because someone wants me to be that way. Like, I can just be myself and be happy with what I'm doing and not have to constantly worry about how people are judging me or how people are looking at my actions. But just having a community where everyone's like, hey, I experienced that too, that is enough to make someone feel better about it. Because I feel like as women, we constantly like suppress some of our feelings, maybe not to the extent like some men do, because that's also discussions we have is about men's mental health. Because as like feminists, it's about equality amongst men and women, and in our society, men are almost supposed to suppress their emotions, and we like to be well-rounded in our discussions, but we just try and say, hey, like, this is how we're feeling, this is what we think we can do. Maybe for us, we feel like there's a lot of pressure to be perfect. Then also with men, maybe they don't feel like they can express their emotions enough. But it's mostly just working together to try and be like, hey, not everything needs to be perfect, and what you're experiencing, I'm also experiencing, and that's okay.
So I have to say, it's a little bit shocking I guess, to hear some of what you're saying, because those are certainly issues that women in my generation have felt and fought for, you know, equal rights, and to not always have to be better than and try harder than and be prettier or be smarter or be whatever to be acceptable. And you're right. Part of the fight has been, um, if you try too hard to achieve, you may come across as aggressive. Um, so it's interesting and disappointing that that seems to still be an issue. I'm curious about what you hear from other girls when you're in your meetings and you bring this up. Are they all in agreement with this, or are there different points of view?
There are definitely some girls who are more outspoken about it and some girls who are more quiet about it. But I think we all notice it. I think it's just something that we everyone notices it. Everyone. You have to be completely blind to not notice the discrepancies. But I just think there's this thing where no one wants to talk about it and no one and that's the problem. So yeah, there are girls that talk about it, but
I remember one girl, she came up to me. She was like, I really love what you're doing. Like, I love engineering. She said she wanted to go into like mechanical engineering or something like that. But she's like, I constantly feel overwhelmed because like all of the engineering classes, it's all men. And I feel like in society, there's this stereotype that women are good at like English and writing and stuff like that. And men are, in the STEM field. And based on just that like pressure, even though like I can take an engineering class just as easy as a man could, it's like these stereotypes have almost slightly conformed us.
Mhm.
So women are like, oh, I'll go more the English route. And men might be like, oh, I'll go more the STEM route. Because of that, this girl's like, all these engineering classes I take, it's like all men. And it's almost discouraging because it's not like she has other girls to relate to in those classes who also are like in intro to engineering or aerospace engineering, because it's constantly just been driven into our minds that like that's a man's job. That's what a man traditionally is supposed to do. So I think breaking down those stereotypes and being like, hey, if you like math and science, take an engineering class. Like we should do that. Jump into that. Don't feel like that's kind of what men do. That way more women can, go into those type of classes, and then other women can feel more comfortable following in their footsteps. But I feel like there's these stereotypes that even though I feel like in a lot of ways women do have equal opportunity, it's just these stereotypes are still there and almost discouraging us from still being able to take hold of those opportunities.
Yeah, it's not necessarily blatant sexism in our society, but it's little things. It's just little things that we notice that we have to experience every day. I mean, I don't think that it's a coincidence that the two most underpaid jobs, nursing and teaching, that are extremely difficult jobs but are underpaid, are female dominated. Like that's not a coincidence. I don't think so. And there are just little things like people assume, like I'm in an engineering class right now. It's all men. All men. There are two other girls who are in the class with me. And not that it's discouraging, but it definitely just makes me feel a little upset because it's like there are so many women like you guys who have fought before us and want these equal opportunities, yet we're still having to do this, and I still feel like I'm lesser than in some points.
We certainly don't want you to feel lesser than. Yeah, that is a common issue, I think, for women in general. We question ourselves and feel lesser than more than we need to. So you're not. Let me just tell you that right now. You two are very impressive young women. So Doris asks, how do you get the word out about the club? And I want to add, how many members do you have now?
So right now, because one thing we wanted to establish with our club is there isn't like anyone can come to any meeting. That's one thing we wanted to stress. You don't have to like come to the first meeting, sign up, be a member. If there's something that interests you about one of our meetings and we announce it, you can come. We don't want to discourage anyone from coming, and we don't want to like force people to attend to the schedule. We just want, if you want to come and participate in one of our events, you can come whenever. You don't have to come to every single thing. And so typically our meetings will have roughly like 30 to 40 people attend our meetings, but it's different people every time. So we have around 60 to 70 people in our like Google Classroom. So those are people
We
who
have
like,
90 people in our classroom.
well, yeah. But we basically got word out, like telling our friends, posting things on our social media. Word of mouth was a big way. We make announcements. We put things in the newsletter, and people are passionate about it because even though where we live, there's still plenty of girls out there who share the same thoughts as us and like have the same type of worry and concern and desire to talk about these things. And we were just getting word out about that. And I think creating something where people can talk about those types of things, people jumped right at it. I just think someone needed to start it and someone needed to do it, and we are willing to do that.
Surprised, right? You're like, well, we're in the heart of South Carolina, and speaking about women's rights and women's issues is not always at the top of everybody's agenda here in South Carolina. And I think you were a little surprised at the response you got. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, maybe not surprised. We have a lot of friends. South Carolina definitely is dominated by definitely not our views. So, but we have a lot of friends, and I think the younger generation, I really do. I think that they're becoming a little bit more educated, and I really do think we're getting progress. I notice more like progressive ideas within younger generation than I do older ones. So I think we are getting started, and I was definitely surprised that we got so many people, but I did know that there were definitely a
Some
lot of
people out
girls
there,
who felt the same as we did. So that was helpful.
Yeah, and that's really exciting for me to hear that the younger generation is starting to be more progressive and more open. Certainly the pronouns now, it shows a greater sense of acceptance of differences. And you can be who you want to be. I think that so Janet says, first of all, she commends you guys as being two intelligent and articulate young women. I totally agree. And then she asks, is there an adult as part of the group, and do you meet at the school?
Yes, we meet at the school. Is an adult, Miss Berry. I have to give Miss Berry is our advisor. I really do have to give her a lot of credit. She really has supported us so much. I mean, I don't think we would have found.
She's been like one of the most supportive people. She's like gone out there, tried to find opportunities for us. She's very passionate about it.
She is passionate.
We could probably get sponsors willing to sponsor us who have some desire for a club like ours, but I will say without a doubt, our sponsor, Miss Barry, is like one of the most passionate
She's
people
so
of it, and
committed.
she's so supportive of any of our ideas and anything we want to go forward with in the club.
That's awesome. Well, we need to nominate her for Teacher of the Year. Do you know if there are other clubs like yours in the surrounding schools?
I don't think there are any. I know when we've posted stuff about our club, people from other schools who like follow us have definitely mentioned that they wish there was like a club like that.
Yeah.
Because when we posted about our self-defense class that we had last week or the week before, I had a few people from Jailman and one of my friends from Greer be like, I really wish we had a club like this or something like this at our school. So there's a clear desire for it. It's just a matter of like someone taking the initiative to set that up.
Yeah, and we went to a women's rights rally, and I remember that people came up to us, like, I think they went to Juliana, and they were like, how did you guys do this? And it really is kind of cool to see how people are, I guess, inspired by it.
And like want something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got to spread this out, and hopefully you have a succession plan, since after next year you'll be graduating. Who's going to keep it going at Maldin High? So got to work on that. So we are there other things that we need to know as the older generation about things that are struggles for young girls and young boys, and ways that we might be able to offer support?
I think the biggest thing is a lot of what pressure we feel to not talk about these things is there's this huge question, is there equality in our society for men and women? And in a lot of ways, there definitely is. We've made some strides. And I think off the top of someone's head, it might be like hard to be like, well, this opportunity is given to men, but not women, vice versa. In our society presently, it's not a matter of do I have equal opportunity? It's more of these just underlying stereotypes and this pressure that's really still creating this gap in our society. I think the biggest thing, and this is maybe more for people of like an older age, maybe not for us, but like maternity leave, the biggest reason that causes the wage gap, because I was watching a documentary about this with my dad the other day. My dad's very supportive. He is a feminist. He supports me with my stuff. But I was talking about the wage gap, and one of the biggest reasons for the wage gap is maternity leave and women's basically stereotypical role to be a mother. So women will work for a while and then they get married, and then once they have kids, they're expected to stay home and take care of the kids while the husband works. And then after that, they, have to take on this role of a mother pretty much by themselves, like the parental figure, like majority by themselves with like some like husband helps, but because they have to take on this role almost entirely by themselves because of like our society and what women are expected to do, a lot of them don't go back to work. A lot of them will stay home after that and take care of their kids and won't go back to their job. And that's why there's a big gap in our wage, because a man and a woman can start out with the same job, the same qualifications, but then as soon as this woman gets married and she has children, she has to like slow down the amount of work she's doing, or stop like working for a little bit, and this man will continue to progress in his job and his wages while the woman just kind of remains stationary in her place in the workforce, because she has to dedicate so much of her time to like fulfilling her role as like a caretaker, while the man, he isn't seen as having to do that, so he just continues to work up the chain and not have to focus on this maternal role, whereas the woman in our society, even in present day, is still expected to take on that role, even though, they might have equal opportunities in the sense of being able to work, but because women are so much seen as like, we have to take care of kids, we have to do this, then it's just, that's what really sets us back in our society. And I think breaking down these stereotypes and these roles in our mind will help make more of an equity in our society. Not that we don't have equal opportunity, but it's just really these stereotypes and these societal roles that are kind of still creating this gender gap for us.
Also, to add on to your question, I think that there tends to be with like older generations, because our generation, if you're progressive, we are very progressive, which I'm not saying is a bad thing at all. But I think that there definitely is a discrepancy between the like thoughts and ideas between younger generations and older generations. And I think that it's not necessarily either one's fault, but I just think like we just don't tend to understand each other. I would never talk to my grandparents or my older figures in my life about politics and stuff like that besides my parents, because I just don't think they'd understand how I feel. And I just think that there's kind of because like our times have changed a large amount in the last 20 years. So I feel like it's just hard to understand each other. And I feel like if we just can come together and just try to understand how each other's feeling and just support each other and understand, the troubles that younger generations face, I don't know if that answers your question.
Big goal of what I want to get out of this conversation with you both today. I have grandchildren about your same age, and I think they know I'm very progressive as well, so I think that's not an issue, but there still is a difference. I don't understand some of the challenges they face. I will ask about school or about an event, and so it's the there is that hierarchy of roles, right? So how do you get to that point where you can say, Grandma, we need to talk, and you just feel safe talking?
I just think being willing to listen, because I know, at least in my family, because like my family is like, have this very like traditional role, like children, like I guess younger ages, it's like, we're not as wise as like older groups, so maybe we shouldn't share as much our opinion on politics and stuff like that. But I think we should try and move away from that. Just make the younger generations, like maybe your grandchildren or your children, feel more comfortable sharing their thoughts on things, because if they're like, well, this is how I feel, this is what I've been hearing about in politics, this is my opinion on it, and just be open to what they have to say and like answering their questions or helping them do more research on it. So like these younger generations can be more educated and feel more comfortable sharing their opinions. I feel like that's the best way to move forward in like fixing these gaps of inequality and just like being more educated overall and allowing people to share their opinions. Because I feel like as younger generations, we have this stigma like we're not that smart, we're not that educated, we really shouldn't have an opinion about this. We need to let the people who are older and have been to college and have jobs like be the only ones with opinions about this. But like we're eventually going to grow into those people, and as soon as we start understanding what this stuff is, we should be allowed to like share our thoughts and feelings on it and just be heard and be like represented, because we have to experience this stuff all the time. But why is it that not until we hit a certain age mark that our opinion is valid, or we should be heard, or we should even be talking about this kind of stuff? It's just we need to be heard and like understood, because that will make it more easier to understand everyone overall and just be able to move forward.
Yeah, and I feel like no matter what, there is kind of a social hierarchy, like you said. I mean, not that my grandmother is, I guess, better than me, but she's older than me, she's wiser than me, she knows more. So sometimes it's hard when we have difference of opinions. Like that just feels hard because like when in doubt, I would feel like my grandmother would be right because she's older than me. She knows more than me. So it's just hard for me to discuss my opinions if sometimes I feel a little discouraged whenever talking to her. If that makes any sense.
Well, I think you made some brilliant points about listening. I think we all have to listen better. And your comment about older and wiser, I mean, in some respects, we have experience that you haven't had yet, but that's our experience.
Yeah.
It's different than what you're living, And so I think listening both ways, I mean, speaking with the women that you did at AAUW, they have had a lot of experience working towards women's rights and educational rights for women. But we're not living as 17 or 18-year-old girls, right? So I think starting this dialogue like we've done today and seeing it hopefully develop, I think we have to create these bridges between the generations to make the progress that you want to make, so that Ellie and Avery, you can both have those careers and have a family if you choose, and, study engineering if you want to, or be a writer if you want to. It doesn't matter, as long as you feel understood and supported. And, I hope everybody listening finds ways to do that. I know we've talked about a lot of the challenges, and I did want to take an opportunity to also talk about some of the things that we might be hopeful about. Are there things looking out into your future in the next few years of college and careers that you feel like you're hopeful, you're seeing some progress?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, there are a lot of issues going on. There's a lot going on. And sometimes it's hard to look past the negativity and the stuff that's going on. But I do believe that there is change. Like there are people out there who think the same things we do and are willing to make change and are willing to educate themselves. And it really is, it's kind of cool to see it sometimes.
Yeah, and I think one of these stigmatisms is like the woke movement, which I don't understand why people are so scared by that.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I get like some things people are confused by, but I think just the ability, which I feel like I've been excited to see, is people are willing to talk about these things. People are willing to talk about their feelings and like what they want to do, and just having these open conversations, like with the more recent movement of like gender identity, people feeling more comfortable, like, hey, I might not fit completely into this idea of what a female is or what a male is. Like, I think I might be somewhere in the middle, or I might be just being open about who you are. That doesn't affect anyone negatively. If you want to identify differently because that's how you feel what you are truly, then that doesn't affect anyone. And I think being open to that and making everyone feel more comfortable and just having those discussions and breaking down these stereotypes is like one thing I've definitely seen in our society as we're moving forward is people are just more comfortable to express how they feel and their thoughts on things. And I think the more we talk and the more we're open to and being receptive about ways people feel and how things um, affect them, that overall can help us move forward as a society. And I'm definitely seeing a lot more of that.
Yeah, and I think people are becoming less scared of the idea of us moving back from this traditional society where men go in the house, men go work, and women stay in the house. And I think we really are moving slowly, but we are moving past that idea. And I think people are becoming more and more every day, slowly, but they are becoming more, I guess, comfortable with the idea of us moving on from that. And that's really important. But I think once people become a little bit more comfortable with just opening their minds a little bit, we could make so many strides, like, and that'd be so amazing. But I think we're getting there. I really do.
So you're hopeful that people are getting more comfortable with being open about who they are and talking about some of the concerns and differences. And well, that's very positive. Heidi has an interesting suggestion. Have you thought about having a meeting where you invite your grandparents and try and have a dialogue? What would that be like?
My grandparents live in Rock Hill.
Oh, okay.
They are lovely human beings. I do love them. I don't think they would be. I don't know. They are very different from me, and I love them. I really do. But they definitely have grown up with ideas, and they kind of stick to them. So I don't know if they'd be too happy to be there. No, I don't know. I don't know about your grandparents. Your grandparents would be supportive, right?
Maybe. My grandparents, the only thing is they are slightly technologically challenged, so I would have to figure that out. So
Oh, so you don't meet in person?
Yeah, I don't think they could come in person.
they might not be able to come in person.
Probably.
But your school meetings, are they in person or are they all online?
Our school meetings are in
School
person.
meetings are in person. Sometimes we have guest speakers. They have been in person and online. Most of the time we try to do online because we figure that's easier for everybody. But again, after seeing my grandparents do a Zoom meeting during COVID, I don't think they'd be able to figure it out, unfortunately.
Well, something to think about for the future. It could be interesting because you want to start the dialogue, and we have to learn to dialogue with people that don't think like us. So that's always
Yeah, that's true.
not easy, but it is a challenge.
Mhm.
So any takeaway or advice for boomers on how we can work to support what you're doing in the Young Women's Forum?
I just think being more receptive of these like changing rules and just breaking down stereotypes of what females have to be and what men have to be. I just think as society in the past we've built up these like ideas of what a woman should be, what men should be. And I feel like breaking those down, making people feel more comfortable sharing their ideas and just how people feel overall about their struggles and what they think they want to do. I feel like being more receptive to that will make everyone be more comfortable in their own skin and more happy like pursuing the things they want to do.
Yeah, I think a big takeaway is just I have noticed that times are changing really fast, and sometimes people just can't keep up with it, and I get that. But I feel like sometimes people just need to figure out how to just listen. I feel like that's definitely a big problem with what's going on, is that even including my generation, we just can't listen and try to just sit there and understand someone else's perspective. So I think just listening and being open to things that are maybe challenging and scary is just something that is really, really needed.
Yeah, well, you two are very impressive young women. I so appreciate that you took the time to share these ideas with us. And I'm not sharing your contact information with the audience, but if anybody would like to get in touch with Avery and Eleanor about what they're doing and maybe bring it to other schools, you can email me. You can email me at wendy@heyboomer.biz, and I can forward your email on, and then they can decide. but for safety reasons, I didn't want to share their emails. All right. So if you are a regular listener of the Hey Boomer Show, then you are aware of the Hey Boomer Banter, which we will start up again tomorrow night at 7:30. No, I'm sorry, at 6:30 Eastern Time. And it's a chance for us to get together as a community and talk and learn and grow and listen. And so tomorrow night, we're talking about friendship. If you'd like to be part of that, just drop me an email at wendy@heyboomer.biz. I'll send you the link to join us for that. Also, the vitality assessment, like I said, you can get that on the homepage, heyboomer.biz. So be sure to download that and check out where you are on feeling vital in this stage of your life. And please go to roadscholar.org/heyboomer. Just look at the trips, just so that they know that we're talking about them and we're supporting them. They do have some amazing opportunities. So go to roadscholar.org/heyboomer. It's important to support our sponsors. And next week, I have a real treat for you and some homework. Okay, so next week, my guest is Sky Bergman. And Sky is an award-winning photographer, a filmmaker, and the director of a documentary called Lives Well Lived. The film celebrates the incredible wit, wisdom, and life experiences of older adults living full and meaningful lives in their later years. Sky began creating this documentary by filming her 99-year-old grandmother cooking her famous lasagna. Then she is now, I think grandma is 103 and still going strong. But then she continued creating the documentary by adding, I think, another 15 or so vibrant older adults, and now uses this to create conversation with younger adults, younger people in high school and college who are amazed at what older adults are still interested in and doing, and makes aging look much less scary. So your homework is to watch the movie Lives Well Lived. You can find it on PBS. I'm also going to put the link for where you can stream it live on your home computer. So thank you again, Ellie and Avery.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It was really
Yeah.
fun.
This has been great. And I always like to leave you all with the belief that you can live with relevance, live with courage, and live with passion, and that we are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. My name is Wendy Green, and this has been Hey Boomer.